It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
Alrighty, we are back. It is the unofficial 40 right here on Soonerscoop.com podcasts, where the entire crew has finally joined, including one, Josh McCuistion, who apparently has a new router because he could not join us last week. Which, Josh, I blame you for the post on the message board that proclaimed that last week's pod was as good an effort as OU against Kansas.
Yeah. I don't know who I accepted. I don't know whose role I was playing in that story, but that's fair. I mean, it was.
You did not show up.
Yeah, I did. I mean, at least OU showed up in Lawrence, Kansas. I didn't even have the balls to show up. I completely no show.
Or the internet speed.
Yes. I mean, internet balls. I mean, whatever you want to call it out there, the anger is fair and righteous.
Well, you have 2 weeks of pent-up hostilities, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't know what you really want to get into today or what you've missed out on. I think the one thing we need to start out with is your soccer dad life, because there's a story that you've been threatening to share that you have not been able to share because either, one, you've forgotten, or two, we haven't given you the opportunity. Has something to do with a fat kid, apparently.
Yeah. And this is not a fat kid shaming story. I want to be clear, but I also want to say,
we'll be the judge of that.
Sure, fair enough. This is, I literally was part of a 7 and under Little League penalty kick scenario last week, and it's only the second best thing I've seen in Little League soccer over the last few weeks. So that tells you this is fantastic. This is just a great thing. So,
because for people that don't know, you are a soccer psycho.
Yes.
Like
Carrie has had to watch World Cup games with me.
Before that became a thing with American males to Premier League and all that stuff. Like, you were head over heels in love with soccer before it became a mainstream thing.
That is owed to my older brother. He was a legitimately good soccer player and was into it. And I think people saw Luke Hass's tweet this week. I'm a football body guy. Okay, I just am. But I can still like soccer. That's fine. But anyway, we won't waste too much time because this is a Little League soccer story.
Couch body type of guy these days?
These days, that's fair. The couch body, yeah, that's fair. That hurts, but that's fair. And honestly, Carrie, I want to thank the public and yourself for a picture you sent out
this is amazing.
when I was up there checking out the office and you sent that picture out. Somebody said something about cankles. And I was like, do I have fucking cankles? And I kind of looked, and I'm like, well, they do look kind of bad. And I said something to Tiffany, and she goes, yeah, they are kind of swollen. And I was like, well, all right. And I'm not the healthiest guy on the planet, but I get to the gym. I was like, I shouldn't have cankles. So she gets to talking to a few people. I go see a cardiologist. Long story short, I've got some edema in my legs that I had no idea of, didn't know what edema was before this all started. So I was like, okay, I found a legitimate health concern by people trolling me on Twitter. So that was an exciting little storyline. I had to go get a cardiogram, this whole thing. We were concerned I had real heart issues, but it just turns out I've got some edema. So anyway, wow, this is really going longer than I intended. Anyway, back to the fat soccer kid story. So a couple of weeks ago, we were playing a game against the team, and we're watching, and they've got this goalkeeper, and he's really good. But he's a healthy kid. I was a big kid, no shame here. But he's really good. And he's got keeper gloves. He's super serious. This is 7 and under soccer. They're you're lucky if they're looking at the ball most of the time. So, but he's really good, and we can't score on him. And one of the moms of one of Laney's friends on the team goes, man, they really need to switch him out, because most teams, each quarter they'll rotate everybody and everybody changes positions, or whoever's on the bench comes on. It's very, everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. So this kid doesn't come out though for the first 3 quarters. And I keep telling a couple of moms, I'm like, I don't think you want this. I think you want him to come play. I don't think you do. And so the fourth quarter, we're up 1-0. We finally score on him, and they put him out in the field. This little dude is the baddest mother on the planet, and he's running around everybody like he's fast and he's big, and he's like bullying people, like just knocking people over. He's in it. Like, this kid's gonna win. He hits. I don't know that any of the four of us could kick a soccer ball this hard, and damn near kills our goalkeeper. And he scores, like, he goes like top corner in the goal. Like, everybody else, like, it dribbles into the goal, or the goalkeeper just misses the ball. Like, this one,
he like bends it in and everything.
Yes, like it had spin on it. Like, it was impressive. And then he literally comes back, and now, okay, here's where the healthy thing starts to happen. He gets a little tired. He starts getting a little gassed, and like, all of a sudden, our team starts having a little momentum. They start getting going. He's just exhausted. The big dude cannot run. They finally get him, like, a ball right in the middle of the goal, and he just pounds another one in. So they're up 2-1. Within 2.2 seconds, that coach has moved him back to goalie. We don't come near the goal ever again. This dude was, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a brick, but he is the brickiest soccer player I've ever seen. It was just impressive because everybody on our team was like, well, if we just get him out of goal, we're going to win. And I'm like, And I think it's the scouting background. I know an athlete when I see him. Even when they're big and they're husky, I knew that dude could play, and he kicked our butt, whether it was a goalkeeper or as a striker. He wore us out. So, cheers to the chunky soccer kid. Yes, we have boys and girls. It is a...
I was going to say, point of privilege. We just need to make sure that we're using the right pronouns here.
Yeah, no, we have boys and girls. Our three best players, one is a girl, two are boys.
Either that or Josh is so bored he's out scouting 7th grade boys soccer with his daughters.
Oh,
Around
no,
the Katy area?
one field over, there is flag football going on, and I keep joking with Tiffany. I was like, I got to go over there and check it out, see who's got the goods. So, yeah, that's the sad reality of my life.
That was 8 minutes of Josh just to start a pod. That's never happened before.
Welcome back.
Okay,
New
talk your damn basketball. They played a game. Let's hear all about it.
We should start putting numbers on Laney and Layla's soccer games, like hitting overs and make it interesting for the people on the board.
Start some live streaming.
Yeah, maybe a couple live streams. I'd start gambling a little bit on Little League Soccer. I hear that's a pretty lucrative business these days.
I considered it.
Looking for entrepreneurs. It's Entrepreneur Week in Oklahoma.
Last week with the penalty kick scenario, like I thought the game was just over. Like, I knew it was the playoffs, but I was like, oh, they'll have some sort of weird tiebreaker and the game will just be over because everybody's on a schedule. Like, you got to get off the field by X, to get to the next game, whatever.
Participation trophy societies. Is what
yeah, I mean, I thought that's where we were. And they're like 5 minutes of extra time, and we're like, okay. And so we play that, and then we're like, well, still nothing's been decided. And again, nothing occurs to me. And then I see the referee like setting up where the penalty kicks are going to happen. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, it lost all interest for me that my child was involved. I just wanted to watch a bunch of little kids do penalty kicks, and it went exactly as you would think. Literally no one could score. It was, I
figured that was the case.
We went 15 to 20 straight shots with no one scoring. Finally, they moved the spot up, and this one girl just drilled it. And that was, we lost. We lost on penalty kicks. It's a tough way to go down, but as a soccer fan, I respect the spirit of the rules.
You say we. Are you the coach?
No, not per se. Largely because I wouldn't do well in a 7-year-old scenario. Like, we took off late in that game during regulation, took off like 2 of our best players and put on other players, one of which was my child. And I was like, I wouldn't have done that. Nah, I wouldn't have done that. No way. I'm leaving those kids out there until they drop. And I told the coach, I was like, this is why you're better for this spot than because he's a friend of mine. And I was like, you're better for this role than I am, because I would have let those kids go and everybody else can just wait. We're trying to get a win here.
This sounds like a scenario if they would have won, you would have taken complete credit and said you are on the coaching staff, but now you're separating since they came up short in the playoffs.
I help because there's literally no one else. It's like one coach for like 10 7-year-olds that pay very limited attention. So I'll go shag balls for them, like while they're kicking or whatever. Like, I do what I can, but I absolutely have no coaching role, which is absolutely for the best.
Eddie, I fully expect your rundown to the start of the show to be Josh, soccer mom.
It's all in Spanish is what it is.
Guys, me out there, it's just Rodney Dangerfield in, what was it, Ladybugs? I just keep saying correct, I've got a lot of balls over and over again. Like, that's all I say. That's my whole line. It's my whole shtick.
Didn't he have like a nephew that was a boy that pretended to be a girl to make them good?
Was it? What, like his net? Like he was he dating a woman?
He might have been.
And like it was the woman's son or something. Like, I remember because it was that kid that was in like.
I've even seen Ladybugs.
I think that kid is dead now, isn't he?
Is he?
Because he was on that kind of Star Trek underwater series.
Yeah, sure enough, he was on Flight 93.
Shut up, Eddie.
Jesus God!
Just shut up. I mean, I can see through your bullshit. I mean, it's just for some reason my Eddie Dar is up today, and I can just read. He tried to start off logging in and acting like his mic was broken. I could tell he was faking. I mean, I am just my feelers are up today with the Eddie bullshit.
I was like, really? No way.
Jonathan
I can't say I didn't.
His name was
Brandis.
Jonathan.
I'm looking.
Is he dead?
Yeah, in 2003. Went out in pretty awful fashion from what I can read here. I don't want to bring the pod totally down. We don't want to go from youth soccer to, but it's
the
it's not
listeners
good.
at home can Google it.
Yeah, give it a Google.
I did not have ladybugs coming up on my unofficial 40 bingo card today.
Well, how could he be mad? He dated in the late 90s Tatiana Ali. That girl was the money in the late 90s from the Fresh Prince. Yeah.
Maybe Salil Moonfry as well.
Isn't she same team these days?
Oh. That I didn't know.
Aren't the no, I'm thinking of the two sisters. That's who I'm thinking of. The sister combo. Aren't they lesbians?
Oh, you mean Tasha and whatever?
Isn't that
No, one of them's married with kids.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe one of them is then. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
The Maoris, Tia and Tamara.
Yeah, Maori. That's it. Good luck segueing into Lincoln Riley taking the LSU job now.
Boom.
But no, do you guys just know that we did 6 degrees of Jack A right there? We connected Ladybugs and Sister, both of which involved Jack A of 90s fame.
I hated Jack A. I didn't see the appeal in her
not
at
a big fan. Yeah, not a big fan.
I find her funny.
Okay, so yesterday was weird because it was Lincoln Riley's press conference and it was Lincoln Riley's coach's show, and he did not appear on either one. And so it had everybody just kind of like, what's going on? And I don't know if that's what led to all these stupid LSU rumors. But
no, I think that stuff was already out like in the ether, but that just fueled everything that led into what was a weird Tuesday.
Now we are told Lincoln Riley will have a press conference tomorrow. So
in Baton Rouge or Norman?
Well, he'll be on Zoom, so it could be anyway. It's just like that guy with the green screen that's like on water slides and motorcycles and all that stuff.
Maybe he'll be a cat tomorrow. Who knows?
They really should just put up a background of like LSU Stadium behind him.
That'd be so great. God,
no one has that much of a sense of humor at OU, though, to make that happen.
Oh, I was thinking guts, but yeah, sense of humor's good too.
Lord.
So, we talked to Dennis Simmons, and that was weird. And Alex Grinch revealed pretty much the only thing of note yesterday worth repeating, which is they kind of expect Woody Washington to play this weekend, which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing.
It was pretty funny, just like how matter of fact he was when in comparison, and Bob, you wrote about it, it was basically a 180 from what Lincoln Riley said on the Big 12 teleconference in regards to Theo Weiss and Woody Washington's status. Although we will say that, I mean, we talked about it last week on the U40 that Woody was practicing a week ago. So, I mean, it's a very positive news on that front. I still don't know if I would go completely all in and say that he's going to play, but I think it is safe to say that we're going to see Woody Washington at some point in November. And if you would have asked me that a month ago, I would have said no way.
And yeah, I think
this might be.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, this might be what Alex Grinch was talking about yesterday with Jalen Redmond being cleared to play compared to actually being someone who can really play. I'm still thinking maybe Woody's cleared to play, but we're not sure if he can do something this weekend or if it's going to have to wait till next weekend. He's not wrong. I don't know how this mixes up everything. This key move to Justin Broyle's spot and you have Woody and DJ. Very intriguing to see what happens during the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and are you, kind of, what is it, robbing the rich to give to the poor? Like, I like what I saw Key Lawrence the last time he played at corner. And like you said, guys that come back after a long absence, there's some rust there. And there's no guarantee that he's going to be the guy that he was before the injury or the guy that we saw last year. It could take him a couple of games to get back to that level. So, you
don't have that time.
Yeah. I mean, with this schedule, Baylor, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, I would hate that they took Key Lawrence and practice him at the nickel all week long and got him out of rhythm of play in that corner position because he was damn good.
It would give you an opportunity, though, and I think that like the addition of Woody Washington back at cornerback allows you to move Billy Bowman back to a, I think, more comfortable position at safety, right?
Yeah, but he didn't even play last game. I mean, he was.
No,
bad.
It's true.
I mean, he played, but he just played very little
against Texas Tech. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, he was not a factor in the game plan defensively at all.
As someone on the beat used to say, a complete non-factor.
We miss you, Chris Lincoln.
Every day.
Every press conference.
I mean, he's not dead. He's still around, but I do miss him.
I think you can catch him like Cox Channel 3, like at 11 o'clock at night, doing his sports show from a casino somewhere in Tulsa. And I watch that damn thing every time.
Funniest characters I've ever come in contact with.
He was great. So it's championship November, and Baylor's coming up. And after the loss to TCU, now I'm starting to wonder, like, is this the easy win of all the three? I know it's in Waco, and I know it's been a tough place for Oklahoma to play, but I mean, let's face it, last two times they've been there, it's been two of the most memorable games that any of us have ever covered.
There are certain emotions that come with going down to McLean Stadium. It has been
never
the
been
most
there during the day too.
Yeah, the last two trips were night games.
That is true, isn't it?
Night 2011, 13, 15, 17, 19.
No, that's 100%. I guess I'd never even thought about that. I was there during the day for no, that was a night game too. I was going to say I saw Tanner Mordecai play in Waco Midway, but that was a night game as well because it was during the playoffs. I guess that'll be a little bit weird. Baylor is always like, even going back to the Floyd Casey days with the RG3 game that was on a Thursday night, it has always kind of delivered kind of the most just craziest, wildest, can't really predict style games. And
that was the Thursday night game?
Like, I'm excited. I'm excited about Saturday. It's going to be a good one. I don't think anybody could have. It does kind of suck in a way that I don't think any of us expected Chandler Morris to move the ball like they did a week ago up in Fort Worth and beat Baylor. And, as the college football playoff rankings came out, which we can talk about that stupid ass show at some point. But it didn't hurt them maybe, I guess, nearly as much as some people thought. And I think it's going to be like, I think Baylor is past the point of saying they're a good football team in which I say, I don't think that they're going to come in and lay down. There's still a lot for them to play for. I think it's going to be a really, really tough game. It's a top 15 matchup.
Yeah, I think they just didn't know who Chandler Morris really was. And by the time they figured it out, it didn't really matter because Morris was in a groove. He was making plays that, Max just didn't do. And you never know. I mean, we talked about that with Texas Tech. Was Sonny Cummey just going to throw it all over the yard and Alex Grinch was going to have no answers? That wasn't the case, but it was for Baylor, TCU. The Bears were not ready for what Morris and the Frogs had in store for them.
Well, I think it also speaks to the value of not that Max Duggan wasn't a mobile quarterback, but I mean, the reason that Lincoln liked Chandler Morris is because he was accurate. But as we saw from what little we did see, he was a really fast, mobile guy, more so than I thought coming in, at least compared to everyone else in college. And I think that's the key for Oklahoma. Like with Caleb Williams, like what is he going to do with his feet? And it's probably why Iowa State has not had the year that they've had, because even though Brock Purdy can escape the pocket and move around a little bit, he's not a dynamic playmaker with his feet like you have with the Spencer Sanders or a Caleb Williams or even a Chandler Morris. And I think Jerry Bohannon, I don't know if it's gerrymandering or gerrymandering. I mean, he can move pretty well as along with those guys.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just not a great
he's not
thrower.
Really about speed, but he's physical. He's not afraid. And the rankings committee did do OU a solid of just moving Baylor down 1. And I wasn't sure how that was going to work out because Baylor beat BYU.
There were no favors, Bob. Come on.
Cougars going to keep moving up.
I refuse to
Baylor
recognize any
1.
favors that were done by that idiot committee.
We won't talk Michigan State. That makes no sense. But Baylor dropping 1 was huge for OU.
I didn't watch the show again. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing that we do as a society.
No, honestly, it's not.
And you know what's even more dumb? Asking Gary Barta to explain what they're thinking. He sounds like an absolute moron up there. Why do we do that? Why do we make them do this? I know it's a rhetorical question. It's for television, but it's just so stupid. I don't get it.
He has perfected talking in circles.
Like, I want to punch myself in the face repeatedly when I see Gary Barta's face.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't even read the transcript last night when it came out.
He's a fucking idiot.
They always, like, when they release it, kind of their broad statement is always like, well, these data points. And then when they kind of ask for some nuance, it's like big, broad generalizations. And you're like, well
it's also the eye
test. Is it data or is it, I mean, okay. I mean, if it's data, it's data. If it's not, it's not. But it's just, I don't know. Like the Michigan State thing, I don't understand how that happens.
You can't have Oregon above Ohio State and then rank Michigan above Michigan State. It completely destroys any system that you have in place.
Agreed, especially when Michigan State's loss is far less embarrassing than Oregon's. I mean, yes. I'd get it if they were fairly comparable. I mean, maybe you have that case, but, I mean, Purdue's a decent football team, and Michigan State lost. That's fine. And
I think we all know if OU goes and beats Baylor, they're moving them way up. But why the hesitancy to keep OU there? Like why they're hedging their bets? I have no idea why that is. It's like the Texas Tech game meant nothing, and then all these teams lose in front of in the committee's eyes. It meant nothing because they gave them no credit for winning that game decisively a win as they've had all season. And at the same time say, well, their best win is against Kansas State and Texas Tech. Yeah, and they kicked Texas Tech's ass, and they looked good on both sides of the ball doing it, and yet you did nothing to move them up after that. And then you have a bye week and all these teams lose, and you keep them there. It's just like OU fans are pissed, and I can understand why, because you've done nothing to – but, like, if they beat Baylor – The expectation now is if you don't move them in the top 4, then you're fucking idiots.
Iowa State and Texas Tech are roughly loosely compared to what I think the committee looks at as Wisconsin and Purdue. And those two teams or those 4 teams are treated drastically different.
Iowa State's not even in the top 25. That's mind-boggling to me. When they have a win over Oklahoma State.
Wisconsin could barely move the football a month ago. And now people are acting like they're just some kind of
juggernaut, yeah.
Which is the same shit they did with Ohio State.
It's another one of those things where, I mean, we might as well just pray to the North. Thank God for the Big Ten. Thank God for the football teams up there. Even the one that Jerry Sandusky worked at. It's just unbelievable to me. It really is. I don't get it.
I don't think there's a single
I guess I'm just a Big 12 homer.
Well, I'm going to say this. I don't think there's a single Big Ten team that can beat, definitely not Georgia, not Alabama, but not even Texas A&M. I don't think.
I mean, they're walking in circles. Ohio State looked like shit last week against Nebraska. Straight up.
Yep.
Yeah, 9 weeks into the season, too. And OU played them with Spencer Rattler as their quarterback.
Again, it as much as I hate talking about it, I love talking about it because it is just so ridiculous how this committee and, the talking heads and whatever nationally, they love the idea of thinking some of these Big Ten teams are good. And we sat here last week and told you Michigan State ain't shit. And they went and got their ass kicked by Purdue. Like, it is not even close. Purdue is a better football team than Michigan State.
Because we were at the OU basketball game, I didn't get to hear what they said about Bama because they were 28-point favorites against Edo and the Tigers.
Yeah, and if Max Johnson was worth a damn, they probably would have beat Alabama. I watched most of that second half of that game, and I mean they had multiple opportunities.
Yeah, it didn't
in the
feel
red
like
zone.
a fluke either. It felt like they were just better on that night. There's nothing Bama could have done.
Like the Bama thing, like all of that stuff kind of takes care of itself, though, doesn't it, Josh? Like that's why I don't overreact. But at the same time, I think it's really stupid.
I think Bama's 4 if they lose to Georgia.
I would say,
yep.
I don't disagree.
They're number 2 right now with just 1.
Guys, the interesting question to me is, and I mean, again, it's kind of moot because we'll have one more, to use the committee's term, data point to find things out. But if you told me OU goes 3-0 in November, Alabama goes undefeated in November, they're 11-1, OU's 12-0, I would bet you money Alabama's still ranked ahead of Oklahoma.
Bingo.
That is the level. It doesn't, and I mean, I'm not even one who hates that, guys. I've sat here and talked before about Alabama being 11-1 is better than Cincinnati being 12-0. It's a totally different thing that they're facing week in and week out. I get that. But at some point, there does have to be some credit given for they handled everybody on their schedule. Cincinnati is spitting the bit. I mean, they're threatening to lose to really bad teams week after week.
We can officially stop talking about Cincinnati as a team that's going to make the play. They're not making it.
I agree.
They're done. I don't even think they're going undefeated. I think they're going to get beat by SMU or Houston.
I don't think even if chaos reigned, I think a one-loss Oklahoma team would get in front of Cincinnati.
Here's where I think it gets weird.
I don't think that's crazy.
Here's where it could get weird. As you said, Alabama struggled against LSU. They didn't. I mean, even though the score looks impressive, they didn't blow out Tennessee, and they lost to A&M. It's not out of the question that Auburn could jump up and beat them at the end of the year. Then, if Texas A&M wins out and they take, the West, and they play Georgia, I mean.
They
beat Georgia, then you have 2 SEC teams in right there.
If Alabama will lose, A&M wins out, A&M beats Georgia in the SEC championship, which I think is possible. A&M's playing really good football right now.
You know, none of us are going to say nice things about Texas A&M. They're a fucking good football team.
Yep, they know what they are.
I mean,
They've
since
done a
Calzada,
really good job of steadying the water too, with a bunch of injuries.
Yeah, and
especially
I mean,
at the quarterback position.
like Calzada looked completely lost. Like I watched that Colorado game, and Jimbo Fisher was ready to kill him after every possession change. He has become a decent quarterback all of a sudden.
He is, but I would say he's more of a leader than a good court. Like when he lowered his shoulder on Smoke Monday against Auburn, man, that's the stuff that your team will get behind you on. Like even if you're not very good, we respect the hell out of you that you took that shot. Kid dislocated his shoulder, went in, replaced it, and went back out there. Like, man, I don't offense, defense. That's the stuff we talk about to a totally different degree with Caleb. Like having that same stuff that people react to. And that's what Calzada's doing right now is people are reacting to his play. And like I said, they know who they are. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to, let Calzada do a few things, not get too crazy because he's not pulling. Alabama was a rabbit. He pulled that out of his hat. It's not going to happen again. But at the same time, Georgia's running out Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Like, are we giving Georgia some huge advantage? No, they're very mediocre at quarterback too. So there's no reason they can't win that game.
That's why this whole thing is so interesting is because I don't know if I can confidently say that A&M's going to go on the road this weekend and win in Oxford.
100%. Because guys, what is Ole Miss? A great offense. I think one of the few really great offenses in college football this year. What do they have to score to beat to beat A&M? 20, 24, 27? Like, they don't have to be great defensively, and they don't have to score 40 to win because A&M
and
is
unlike
what
Alabama,
they are.
you just don't give up any touchdowns on special teams.
Yeah.
That A-chain dude is fast.
Oh, dude, I got to watch him in high school a few times down here. That dude is he's like that, whatever the little notch below Tyreek Hill is, he's that kind of fast. He is insane. Watching him against high school kids was just comedy.
Was he a Fast 7 kid?
I think he was. I'm terrible with that 7 crap. He was out at Fort Bend Marshall. OU's recruited several guys out there. And I've talked to A&M doubted him for a long time. He wasn't like we're going to take him early and we know we want him. Like there was some trepidation about him. He wasn't a surefire guy and, has made some huge plays for them this year.
All right, just take a little time out here to talk about our good friends at Dead Soxy, deadsoxy.com. Big announcement! The 8-bit maker Bayfields are back in stock, so go check it out, deadsoxy.com. Use that promo code BOOMER. Get 20% off your entire order. You can use it for the 8-bit maker Bayfields or some of the other Oklahoma collection socks that they've got. If you go to Collections College, just pick on Oklahoma. There's some OSU stuff there you might see. Just don't pay attention to that. Actually, you know what? If you are an OSU fan, we'll give you a code, Pete, for 20% off if you like listening to the Unofficial 40, which we know some OSU fans do. There's your promo code as well. But OU fans, the State and Stripes Crimson, the 8-bit maker Bayfield, Wagon, State Text, or the Crimson 4-pack, use that promo code, BOOMER, and get 20% off of your order. Thanks to deadsoxy.com for sponsoring the pod as always. And remember, as always, stay soxy. Regardless of what happens in the SEC. I just, with this lineup, Oklahoma, beating Oklahoma State twice, which is, I think, what would have to happen, or how, it's what's most likely to play out at this point. There's no way you could keep Oklahoma out, even if you have 2 SEC teams.
If Oklahoma wins out and everything kind of goes, I think as people think it will, OU's going to be in the 2-3 game. I think that's where it's going to be.
Which would be great for us. Be Arlington.
Yeah, and it should be. It should be against Ohio State or whoever. That can be left for discussion. I don't know if Ohio. I'm at the point right now, and I can't believe that I'm saying this out loud. I don't know if Ohio State goes to Michigan and wins. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, that's how
I just don't
football
think
is right.
Michigan is that good.
I think
the Big Ten has a whole bunch of
bit
good
better than
teams.
I think they are.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. They've got a lot of good teams. I don't know that they have a single great team.
Yep.
Because I don't know if Michigan beats Penn State this week.
Guys, I don't know that there's a great team in college football this year.
Well, Georgia.
There isn't.
Georgia, like,
Just
don't get me wrong,
because of
that
their
defense is unbelievable. But at some point, they're going to play somebody that's going to make them score some points and do so against the defense with a pulse. Like, I don't know. Like, Tennessee will give them some problems this weekend. I promise. Now,
hey, can we stop down one for just 1 second and say, Josh Heupel, good on you, man. That thing has gone exponentially better than I thought it would.
And he inherited
I bagged
a
on him in this pod.
I mean,
and he's done great, no doubt.
And while we're, you know what? Let's just make it a round table as well. You, Dan Mullen. Congratulations to our favorite Shane Beamer.
That was the most savage social media post I've ever seen a school send out.
That was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Whoever did that, like, has to be. I don't know what the what the hiring site is like on, communications and graphics and that kind of thing. I don't know where they hire themselves and where they apply for new jobs. But that guy has to be the hottest commodity on the market right now for just how in he went on Florida there. That was.
But you gotta give Beamer some credit too, because he had to okay that shit.
100%, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But with what we know of Shane, is that surprising at all? Like, I mean, he's going to seize any opportunity.
That's why we love Shane Beamer.
What's amazing to me is the fact that you look, basically, what was it, 2 weeks ago? That same South Carolina team had 15 yards in the through the first 3 quarters in College Station. I mean, maybe that speaks a little bit to what A&M's being able to do on the defensive side of the football, but at the same time, I think it also speaks to just what a train wreck that product is in Gainesville right now.
There's never been a more seasoned coach that I've ever come across that hurts himself more in press conferences than Dan Mullen has in the last 8 months.
Is he one of those guys that just doesn't he doesn't realize how bad that looks, or is he just one of those guys that doesn't care, maybe a little bit of both?
I mean, I question his intelligence, really.
Well,
I don't think you're crazy.
I mean, we all laughed at him and called him stupid for his comments post Cotton Bowl. The thing that everybody kind of, that I think was real, he basically made it okay that his entire team quit. Like, you just set a precedent, like, my team just left. Like, we quit, we didn't care, this game didn't matter. What are you telling your next teams? Like, when it goes bad or when it gets rough, just hang it up. Just don't worry about it. Like, I think you set a precedent there that's really dangerous, and I feel like it's coming home now that this team knows they aren't going to do anything meaningful. They're not very good. Why are we going to go out here and kill ourselves for this guy?
It's a little bit. I mean, it's kind of been a lesson for everybody. Going back to Kleiman, the K-State coach, Chris Kleiman. When he tried to tell the media that they needed to be more positive for their kids. And the juxtaposition of that and Dan Mullen versus the defensive line coach at Texas, people aren't stupid, but you get treated stupid all the time. There is a reality in football, and it's like no one wants you to see that anymore. And so when you see it, everybody's like shocked. It's like the Luke guy. Was it Washington, the coach that hit his player
Jimmy
in the
Lake.
head, or Lake?
Yeah, Jimmy Lake. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look at that and I'm like, that's just so shouldn't be a big deal, but I know it's going to be a big deal because people just want everything so sanitized, and it's not reality.
Guys, I get so sick of you never played football. You didn't play college football. Like, I don't understand how people can be shocked when they hear things like the Bo Davis video. how do you think football coaches talk when there aren't cameras on? Like, I don't know what – I mean, I'm not saying they all do that, but if you think some mother effers haven't been dropped by the vast majority of college football coaches, you are living in a dream world. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Nothing but respect.
I believe 100% that not only should they give Bo Davis a raise, they should put that on the Jumbotron before the game, because he obviously gives a damn. And if we know anything about the Texas program, if we know anything about, and we love to joke about him, it's funny and everything like that, but at the end of the day, it's college football. And if you haven't seen the Bo Davis video and that doesn't like evoke some type of emotion in you, you're the problem. Like, those guys in that locker room, if you listen to anything that Sark has said over the last couple of weeks during this 4-game losing streak for Texas, I truly believe he thinks they have a bunch of pussies in that locker room.
Well,
and by the way that they played in the second half, it's hard to justify that. And they needed to hear that.
And the fact
they kicked the guy off that recorded it.
Yeah, the fact the guy recorded it.
Right out of 10.
The guy that recorded it, I mean, that he's on that team shows you they already have a problem in the locker room.
That's
and also
who Bo Davis was talking to.
That
guy.
And also, if you're a teammate of that guy and you're not telling him to either stop recording or don't post that on the internet, like, how many bad, just softies are on that team?
Guys,
that's part of Texas's problem, is it not? That singularly is part of their problem, that they have guys that think it's funny that they went and got embarrassed in the second half in Ames.
Yep.
I mean, they're in the game at halftime. It's 7-3, and they got their ass curb stomped in the second half
for the fourth straight game. I mean, like, this is at some point there's got to be some personal pride. Like, we care. Like, this matters to us.
Well, I know I've been in that situation where a coach has yelled at people after a loss, because there were people laughing on the bus and stuff and having a good time. And I distinctly remember when that stuff would happen, like being pissed off at how could these people be. Well, you weren't really pissed off. It was like, yeah, that's those guys. Like, they don't take any of this shit seriously. And like, you're sitting there stewing and pissed off. And you just know that you have some guys that aren't all in. And those are going to be the guys that it doesn't affect, on the bus ride back home. And I've been in that situation where a coach has literally stopped the bus and yelled at everybody. I remember hearing a story about a baseball coach in Kansas that was he coached the Olympic team, was kind of a legendary guy in baseball circles. But he literally, Kansas, when he first took over there, they got their asses kicked, and everybody, it was the same thing. They're on a bus ride going home. He stopped the bus like 3 miles from the stadium and made them get out and walk the rest of the way. I mean, that's just, the stuff like that just happens. It's happened throughout the history of sports.
You do that nowadays. Somebody's not only getting fired, but somebody's going to get sued and then publicly admonished and maybe never work in the sport again.
Well, at least in the Pac-12.
I know we sound all very old talking about this, but anybody like that beat writer, he's like a baseball writer. I sent you guys the DM this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
He was like, these guys, what would you do if a coach MF'd you? That guy needs to get the shit knocked out of him. I'm basically saying that guy needs to get beat up. He didn't get beat up enough in high school.
Guys, if Texas turns this around, whether it's this season or over the next couple of years, and Sark gets it going right, that needs to be their Tim Tebow plaque somewhere on that damn campus. Bo Davis's mother effer speech, where they just have it like memorialized, where the players know. I mean, guys, this is what Texas has needed for years, is somebody to be like, you're soft, you're pansies. Like, guys, we've bagged on, I mean, our board loves to bag on the worm has turned Ketch story from years ago. That's what Ketch was talking about. What he was saying was that for years and years, OU was the tough team. They would come in and hit Texas in the mouth, those early Mac Brown teams, and Texas would fold. And then somewhere along the line, Texas got some dudes that were willing to hit back, and that's when they finally went and won a national championship, and they had some kind of swagger to them. They had some attitude, and then Leighton Mac Brown, it kind of turned back again, and they've really never gotten it back again. There is a soft mentality within that program.
Well, I mean,
with all that said, I have greatly enjoyed the last 4 weeks of Texas football. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's been very, very entertaining.
Eddie's not trying to win a humanitarian war to here. He's enjoyed their suffering.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And by the way, Rivals,
give me 10 more years of it.
Rivals, do not send out another tweet asking if Texas fans should be concerned. All right, just don't. You shouldn't have sent out that first one.
Maybe just don't send out any more tweets.
Yeah. They've earned that reputation at this point. Okay. So
this one from our partner.
We still work for Rivals. That's not changing. Anyway,
don't give the password to Mike Farrell anymore.
Yeah, just take it away from him. So awkward pause.
What's the difference between an awkward pause and a pregnant pause?
A pregnant pause means you could tell something's getting ready to come after it. Awkward pause means you don't know what the is coming after it.
Ah, okay. Didn't know.
Or
thought that would be
why?
Thought that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I would say this is a pod of awkward pauses then, because you just never know where it's going to go.
Sure.
Well, we started out with 10 minutes of 7-year-old soccer talk. So
yeah, I'm really sorry. That I thought that was going to come at the end. I was not. I didn't have my notes ready. It was ugly.
I will say, like, in just kind of getting this back to OU centric football stuff. The next month is going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, I love going on the road and covering games. Waco, as we said, Bob, I think it was 2 of your top 5 games in, championship November have come down in Waco.
Absolutely.
Eddie, it's a side of one of your most famous moments, which is you forgot who your daddy is.
Yeah, that's true. I completely forgot about that. Like, wow. It is. Was that was
pre-2015?
17?
No, that's pre-2015.
Was that 15 or 17? I thought it was 17.
Was that 17?
17.
Yep. Because
was that the first year
game
McLean?
was that night, but it was in September, so when you did it, it was still
the sun
sunlight.
was still out. Yeah.
Yes.
17, yeah. And then 19 obviously is the comeback. I truly don't know what this and I know that we talked about this during the bye week last week, but I truly don't know what to expect. Like, I think that Oklahoma wins the next 2 weeks. It's going to be an incredible kind of, I guess, test for Caleb Williams, because I still think that there's a bunch of questions as far as, like, what Dave Aranda is going to throw at him, and then you're playing 2 of the top 5 defenses in the country. You might have to beat one of those teams twice in Oklahoma State, which, right now, if I had a gun to my head, I'd say that they win the next 2 weeks and split with OSU. But the next month of Oklahoma football is going to be fascinating for so many reasons. And I think it's because of what we know about this team, which is not a lot, but at the same time, what it could be. And I think that there's a reason to be excited with some of the guys that are coming back. And you listen to Alex Grinch talk about, getting Jalen Redmond back into the fold. Danny Stutzman and Shane Witter starting to play really well at the linebacker position. Looks like they have an emerging star in Key Lawrence somewhere in the secondary. You don't know where. You just know that he needs to be a part of it. I don't know. I'm pretty jacked up about the next 35-ish days of what's to come.
Yeah, what I'm intrigued about is seeing the ranking show the last 2. I've seen all the OU players tweet their reactions, and what we've seen them is play down their opponent for 2 months straight. Do they have that next level? Is it in them to where this finally wakes them up and, okay, we have to do it now or we're never going to do it? Do they have that elite level that they can take their game to on a consistent basis for 4 straight weeks and shut up everyone who has said anything negative about them through the first 9?
Well, here's the thing. They have never married their defense with Caleb Williams, other than maybe the second half of Texas. because Woody Washington's been out for a long time. Redmond's been out for a long time. Then, they were playing lights out with Delarian Turner-Yell against West Virginia. Then he goes down with his hamstring injury and tries to come back against Texas, goes right back out, and then finally gets back not last week, but the week before. And now you get Woody Washington back. You have Jalen Redmond back, who will be better. Delarian Turner-Yell will be better. Like, they now have a chance to play that we always talk about. Your coaches have always talked about complementary football, where, against Texas Tech, what did the defense do? They went out and they got a 3-and-out to start the game. Now, the offense didn't take advantage then, but every other drive that game they scored until the final one when the clock ran out. So if they can get some complementary football, they can start getting some stops, and Caleb Williams leads that offense like they have, that's the one way that they take the next step. And they haven't been in this position with a healthy defense to be able to do that.
Don't you think in the back of that coach's room, too, that they're like, yes, the college football playoff ranking. They play right into the mantra of nobody believes in you, nobody. And I don't think that that's going to be the reason why Oklahoma would win 3 games, but from a mentality standpoint, I think it does kind of reinforce the idea, like, what you guys have put on tape over the first 9 games ain't shit. Like, it is not good.
And as much as the fans want them to go in and crush Baylor and move up to, like, number 3, that's not what you want either. You want them to move up to, like, 7 after they beat Baylor.
I want them to, well, with this committee, they'll probably drop them to 12 if they win by 2 minutes.
Quality loss is the only thing that'll move them up.
Right. Actually, what they'll do is they'll keep them the same, but they'll knock Baylor completely out of the top 25. So that's no longer a quality win.
They have 0 top 25 wins.
That's exactly what would happen.
They beat Baylor 70-0. Clearly, Baylor wasn't any good.
Right.
But no, it's a good point. I think the coaches look at that and they're like, okay, we've got something to motivate people with, because it really is like just baffling to me. Not baffling. I think for most people it is, though, like how hard it is to motivate kids these days and motivate teams these days, because this staff has had a hard time reaching this group for whatever reason.
And you can tell that because Alex Grinch basically comes every Tuesday and says, whatever I tried this last week didn't work. We know he's got all these analogies, all these like things he tries to do, and it hasn't hit. And I get, for fans, they don't understand that you only get 12 of these, 12 Saturdays where you have to be fired up. How in the world for like
how does a Kansas happen?
3 of them, you're not ready. You're not ready to play.
I'm really interested to see if they do anything. You see any real changes that they had 2 weeks here where, obviously some of it was just about getting healthy and, again, the possibility of Woody Washington coming back, some of those things. But, like, do we see Shane Witter and Danny Stutzman start to get a lot more snaps? Like, stuff that feels like maybe it's deserved? Does that stuff start to come together? Or are they just going to ride whatever the wave has been until, the wave either figures itself out or crashes?
Because I think that's the same thing with Marcus Major. I think they're not going to change anything because it's worked so far. And I think Marcus Major would add some physicality to the running room. But you're 9-0 with Brooks and Gray. Let's not tinker with it.
Well, and
it does feel like something happens, though, in November. And maybe it's just a coincidence that everything kind of matches up and they start playing better football. But it does feel like they take a step up. And I know it's easy to sit here and say that. But when you look at the track record and, Lincoln Riley obviously hasn't lost in November, something does happen, does it not?
I think you said it. They get better as the season goes along.
You can't rely on that. You hope this group isn't just thinking, oh, there's a magical switch we're going to turn on.
Oh, for sure.
That's what we do.
Yeah, for sure.
And you kind of get that attitude from these week of interviews. Like, they just think it's going to happen.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we've talked to one person. It was Eric Gray, and he talked for 2.5.
Last week too.
Do I want to be an asshole or not? Nobody saw that video because they haven't sent stuff like that out in 2 weeks. So, but looks like they're working this week. So congratulations to them.
All right.
Looking forward to that email. I bet you are.
By
Carrie.
the way, yeah, I don't want that email.
That again would have to be working. So
We're coming up against our Zoom, and Josh, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we have Bob for a finite amount of time here. It was Porter Moser's opener last night. You got to see.
The basketball guy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's a basketball.
hold on
coach.
1 second.
Caleb
We're talking
Williams
OU.
was there too, Josh.
If we're talking OU basketball, I'll be right back. I got to put my mask on. I'll be right back.
Oh my God, Eddie is in fine form today.
It really, you guys should see. It's really, everyone in the front row is not wearing masks, and then it's the videographers and the photographers. They're the
It's
only
crazy.
people
It's
that
legitimately
are.
crazy. It's a
really
crazy
strange
experience.
It is weird. And
Has
and
anybody
You see Caleb
asked?
Williams
Has it been
with all the
justified?
students, Nothing. It's a odd feeling, and then writers are up in the middle of nowhere. It's something.
For what reason? I still like it. Just it's such a small thing to us, Bob, and I know like nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yep.
But it's the dumbest thing I've ever.
it
seen
makes
in my
you feel very
It's a
small.
slap in the-
Yeah, I mean, it
It's
just
a
makes you
slap
feel
in the
small.
face. And I'm not. I don't even want to get started. I'm not anti-mask. I'm anti the situation of basically being treated like a bunch of idiots when I've done everything right. I got the. I'm not even going to get into it. Porter Moser, 77-59 victory. It actually
28-25 at halftime. Kind of scary.
It was
initially.
not the nicest performance, Bob, by any means, but
No.
Jalen Hill made a couple plays at the beginning of the second half, and you could feel the energy in that building after he did make a couple plays.
Thanks to Caleb
and then they
Williams.
won the big run, and the rest is history. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, you're waiting for Mo Gibson to do what he did in the exhibition game. It just wasn't happening, and that's what Porter was preaching post-game. If your shots aren't falling, you have to figure another way to help the team, and that's why, as much as you want those shots to fall, Porter was happy. It's like it's a teachable moment going forward. It's not the adversity that you expected in the first game, but they had to overcome something, and Jalen Hill with that steal and that coast-to-coast layup, that woke up the entire crowd. It woke up the entire team. It only made the score 30-27, but there was just a different energy the rest of the way. They finally kicked it into gear. Northwestern State got tired, and they took control.
You know what's weird to me is, and I know this is, I'm not trying to start the bag on media and all that stuff, the media department, but it's like, every time I hear Porter Moser talk, I'm like, man, that guy, I mean, he gets you jacked up. Like, I know you've been frustrated because you haven't had a lot of media opportunities leading up to the season, but
Which I don't think is Porter Moser's fault. I think he would if we wanted to meet at 2:30 in the morning for a media availability. I think Porter Moser would be there at 2:25. Bob, you talked about it after the game. It's like, I mean, he literally went directly from the handshake line and basically ran over to the student section to thank them. And I hate making this comparison, and I hate even saying it this way, but I love Lon Kruger. I think what he did with the OU basketball program, he kind of restored order and took him to new heights and everything like that. But when you see like the energy that Porter Moser has brought to the program, he's gonna fill that place up at some point. It's gonna happen because people are gonna support it.
And that's what he said. It's like, that's what we have to do. And I got to admit, that was the best student section crowd I've seen for a November game in a long, long time. And you hope that, when January comes and football's over, you see the rest of it all packed in too. But if you can keep those students there in November and December, it's going to pay off in January. And I think that's all he's trying to get through people's heads. Like, please show up, please support. I'm going to try to give you a product you're all going to be proud of, and you can I think the thing, it never feels fake with Moser, and I think that was maybe the concern in April. It's like, oh, he's just putting on a show. You can't just keep doing this every single day. You can't put on a show every single day until you really mean it. And I think that's starting to really seep through with everyone. This is who this guy is, and we should love it, embrace it, because, man, he's going to do everything in his power to get us to a level that we haven't been in quite some time.
What'd you make of some of the pieces with this team? I'll be completely honest. Like Alton Mason, I
thought he was going to redshirt.
And he's been pretty damn good. I know that we've only seen an exhibition in a game, but he gets to the rim very well. CJ Nolan is he's a big, thick body, but I kind of like what he has. Like, they have some really interesting pieces. I'm kind of interested to see how this whole thing comes together. And you can tell that, like, somebody like a Jordan Goldwire, he's not going to be a guy that's going to go get you 25 a night, but he's going to be a very steady, very sturdy, what you saw at Loyola Chicago type point guard, right?
Yeah, 4 assists without a turnover and just great decision making the entire night. And Tanner Groves, that's what you expect from him. And that's the thing. Like, you feel like the way they compiled this roster, they checked off a lot of the boxes. It's how quickly does that guy become the role that everyone thought he would be? Does it happen in November, December? Does it happen in conference play? You like the pieces that are there. None of them feel like, I don't know how that one's going to work out. It's just how quickly do they all mesh.
You almost get the feeling,
that guy, like, in Big 12 play when they need a bucket. Like, Porter talked about it after the game last night.
Yeah.
Like, who we're trying to find who that guy is. I don't know if I can just sit here and say that Mo Gibson's going to be that guy because he's so streaky. But when he is shooting the ball well, he is going to be that guy, right?
Yeah, and he said it has to be by committee, and I know sometimes that's not as popular, but I think it'll be that way. It'll be Tanner Groves one night, it'll be Harkless on another. Those are guys that you can trust in those type of moments. You could always have a year like last year where Austin Reeves just kind of takes over and you just kind of let him decide how things are going to work out, but this seems to be what Moser wants for this team. Everyone's going to get their shot, and we'll just kind of – those guys are going to figure out who they can trust the most in the final 5 minutes.
Josh, you still with us?
Hang on, I'm coming.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm back
really
now.
Did leave. Son of a bitch.
I didn't. I've my headphones. I lifted the microphone because I was like, I'll end up breathing and it'll just be creepy and weird, which, might have worked for the whole basketball shtick, but no.
Bob, you should have talked about 7-year-olds for a little bit to get him back into it before.
Ease me in.
By the way, 11 a.m.
Pause.
11 a.m. And I can't think, for the last recruiting weekend, this is probably the last thing that Lincoln wanted to hear was 11 a.m. Iowa State.
Well, they did work with the September ones. They really made the most out of those. But yeah, that kind of blows.
Yeah, that's not the break they were looking for. But there's not a ton to do officials. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a guy or two they would like to add in. I think it's more tricky with some of the unofficials they would have liked to bring in because I know. For example, the Texas Tech weekend, Devin Campbell almost came up. I'm sure they would have liked to get another shot at that. I don't know how well that'll work now. Some of the guys like that are regional that could have come up for an unofficial, I think that really hurt your chances there of getting them back up, and that can sting a little bit. But as I think of it, I don't think of any glaring official that was going to happen this weekend. And another one that I saw last weekend, Cam Dewberry is another guy that he talked to me after the game about wanting to come back up for an official, come back up to Oklahoma. Now, no, that'd be right because he's doing Texas this weekend. Yeah, so he's got that weekend available if he can make it work. But it's pretty tough to get to Houston, from Houston to Oklahoma City before 11 a.m.
Well, last week had some technical glitches, and I think it was kind of I want to say that was the real kind of the McClellan buzz pod that we were going to talk about?
Yeah, it's gotten interesting. Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like I've got a pretty good read on what's happening, but what's happening keeps changing so fast. Because it's one of those scenarios where Chris McClellan is a really my intro didn't really talk about who we're discussing here. Chris McClellan, the Rivals 250 defensive lineman from Owasso, Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean,
nice.
Look at that.
Yeah, I didn't get let in, so I got to make sure people know who we're talking about. I get in trouble for that sort of thing. So a couple of weeks ago, it started to sound like, well, I guess a month ago, it felt like Ohio State was backing away. And that had kind of been rumored since the summer, but it kind of depended on who you talked to, what day of the week it was, that there was a lot of movement. That felt like that started to really become clear not that long ago, that Ohio State was just kind of walking away. Then you started to hear talk that maybe Oklahoma was doing the same. And I checked around with a few people, and it was not a yes, not a no. It was just, let's kind of see where this goes. My general impression is that there has been, and I've said it to some degree on the pod before, there has been a bit of a on-again, off-again thing with Chris McClellan toward Oklahoma. When early in his career, he was so interested in Oklahoma and wanted that offer and really pursued it. And then he got a few, and it seemed like, Oklahoma's whatever. And then when they came in and did offer him, they still kind of had to coax him into interest. Well, then in the summer, it felt like, okay, things are finally starting to match up. They kind of make sense here. You had Gentry Williams starting to come down the kind of stretch with Oklahoma, and Gentry and Chris are buddies, and you kind of thought, okay, this can all start to come together. And then it was just kind of like radio silence. Like, I know when he left his Oklahoma official visit, everybody I talked to said that visit went well. They felt really good about where OU was. I think that was about the time I put my forecast in for OU and Chris McClellan. And then, I can pretty much say it now. There went several weeks where there was no communication between Chris McClellan and Oklahoma. And I want to be perfectly clear, it wasn't for lack of trying. It's just he went radio silent. And there was no explanation as to why. It just kind of happened. So I think at that point, Oklahoma just realizing they've got to do their own thing, started, turning some other leaves over and going in other directions. And I know was looking at some other options. And obviously Hero Canoe is still involved and they're still there. That's kind of a different topic. But with McClellan, it never felt, okay. There are guys that can, it's so nuanced. There are guys who can play that game. Gentry Williams can go 2 weeks and not call anybody, and everybody's going to be like, he calls, a couple weeks later, yep, what's up, Gentry? Like, they're not going to like it, but they know it's a pill they have to swallow. Chris McClellan is not putting the kind of senior tape together that makes that you're not forcing anybody's hand there. So I think there is something to be said of, did he wait a little too long? Maybe. I don't think that decision's been made. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that anything's final or anything along those lines, but I do think it's in question. And so I know this started as one little question. I've gone on for like 3 minutes here. It's kind of tricky, and I don't think there's a final answer, but I don't know that either side is in love with each other right now. I think I've said before, it's like a bad high school relationship.
Why would they try to make that work? I guess, like, from the outside looking in, it's kind of one of those situations, and it kind of goes against the argument that Oklahoma never tries with in-state kids, because this is an exact example of, it almost makes it seem like, and I hate to put it this way, but it almost makes it seem like they know that this is going to end in a divorce and they're still trying to get married.
And that, like,
is that unfair to generalize it like that?
No, I know what you're saying, and there I guess I would say there are days it does feel like that. And then there are days when it feels like Oklahoma has thrown out the engagement ring out the window as they drive down the highway because they just don't give a crap anymore. Like,
and then they have to go out there at night with a
yeah. And then they're out there at night, you know. Yeah, it's like Friday Night Lights. You know, Tim McGraw out there looking for the ring or whatever. So I mean, there is that element to it. Like, it really it varies from day to day, and I think there is some relationship to the Hero Canoe situation, and I think there's also some relationship to things that we can't know yet, and I know you can't know yet, like what the portal's going to look like. Is it worth it to go after Chris McClellan, who, no matter how good you think he is, and I think Chris McClellan is extremely talented, but needs to find production. He needs to be producing more than what he's putting on tape. At the same time, again, he's 6'4", 275 and can run. Like, those guys aren't everywhere like that. So you can't just write that off. But I think the bigger problem, really, I mean, not the tape, not anything else. I think it's been the general lukewarm attitude toward Oklahoma. Like, again, you're Adrian Peterson, name your star player. You get to act like however you want to act. If you're not, you've got to be real careful. That's a real fine line to walk. And I think at times there has been just McClellan, and whether it was, I've heard this from Ohio State sources. I've heard this from Florida sources. Like, it's kind of the same story. Like, he's just kind of off and on. And Chris is a great kid. I like Chris a lot. I don't know if he's getting bad advice. I don't know if he's getting if he's just kind of hard to reach on the phone. He's had phone problems. It could be things that are explainable, but go ahead and explain them rather than just letting it hang out there and leaving all these staffs kind of unsure of where they stand.
As far as the production on the field goes, I find it pretty fascinating because I think the one thing that we knew about him as a player was he burst onto the scene kind of out of nowhere. We knew that it was going to be still a little bit of a project in that, this isn't a hit at the people at McLean, or was it McLean or Edison that he came from?
He was Edison.
But we knew, like, stepping up into the Owasso program, he was probably going to get a little bit more development-wise than he would have at the previous school. Has he struggled at the 6A level in that maybe the light hasn't come on as much as we thought, and he's still a little bit of a project? You just needed to get him into the program. And then, like, you compare that to somebody, and it's almost kind of interesting that you look at what they currently have on the defensive line and the situation that they had to go JUCO. And I don't know if you necessarily want to rely on a JUCO because we've kind of seen what has happened with Perrion Winfrey at the same time. Like, I just find that whole ideology fascinating because it's two different kind of, I guess, passive thinking of taking a chance on, kind of an I don't want to say unknown, but it's, a very raw talent in a Chris McClellan, or trying to kind of wait it out. And maybe you tried to get something out of the portal, which, on the defensive line hasn't been too kind to Oklahoma.
There are things, and I want to start with, I think these are two very different personalities for the players we're talking about, but there are surrounding scenarios that remind me a lot of Ron Tatum. I think that's the best way I can say that. There are things that even if Oklahoma or whoever lands Chris McClellan, it makes me concerned that a year from now he wouldn't be in the portal anyway. And I don't necessarily think that's Chris. Again, he's a kid I've known since he was a sophomore. We've talked a lot. He is as nice and genuine a kid, big goofy smile. Like, he's a good person to be around. Like, I enjoy my time with Chris. But it just feels like there are things he's doing that don't compute with that, like that don't add up. And so there's somebody talking to him, and I don't know who it is. I'm not going to make that claim, but it just feels like he's getting bad advice. Like he's being instructed to do things that don't make sense and that are hurting him. One of the chief among them is continuing to wait. his spots are evaporating. Like, I mean, they are moving away as more and more tape emerges. Anybody like Eddie, and you kind of touched on it. I kind of didn't answer that part of it. There's no question. He has had some bigger issues at Owasso than he would have had if he stayed at Edison. I mean, but that's not a huge surprise. Everybody knew Chris McClellan was going to need time to develop. I don't hold that against him. That's fine. Like, that's okay. I can live with that. What I do find interesting, Chris McClellan at 275 pounds is playing defensive end at Owasso. How he's not inside, it makes me wonder, does he not like that physicality? Does he not want to play in there? Does he not? I mean, because you can say, oh, yeah, Owasso had other good players, and they do. They do. If Chris McClellan is who we think he is from a talent perspective, you figure out where everybody else is going to be. You put him in there and let it they've got another good one in Michael Jamerson. He's a good player as well. You've got the best D-tackle pair in Oklahoma, and it's not even close. So, it's just there are things that, again, that I just can't make sense of. They don't add up to me. And so and again, I'm kind of with you, Eddie, in that, like, I wonder if Oklahoma does go down this road, or whoever goes down this road, are you just signing on for trouble? I don't mean trouble like legal or anything like that. He's not that kind of kid. But are you signing up to, well, he was on the roster for a year, we had to work with him, had to push him, and then now he's leaving. It feels like that sort of scenario, because it's just this is the pattern of behavior we've seen from other guys that followed this role.
Bob had to take off. Zooms have started. We want to get to those here as well. But Josh, just kind of big picture it for us. Kind of things that you're looking forward to in the recruiting world, and things that might be brewing a little bit out there right now.
I think we talked about Chris, the Azariah Thomas kid from Niceville, Florida, DB Rivals 100 kid that took an official to Oklahoma for, I don't think it was Texas Tech. I'm going to blank out on the exact weekend, but he was here last month, or was in Norman last month. And I get the impression from Florida sources that while a lot of people thought, oh, he'll flirt with Oklahoma, but he'll eventually end up staying closer to home and go to Gainesville and play at UF, I don't know that I think that's what's going to play out anymore. Just because with the firing of Todd, with the firing of Todd Grantham, I think it's just going to be tough for that kid who's a very, kind of a sound kid. He's a good decision maker, kind of looks at everything. I don't know how he commits to a school and signs on the early period, which is, from my understanding, is his plan, with Florida not having a DC in place. Like, how do they go and do an in-home with him? How do they go through all those motions without the primary, I guess, element of his future really, having any decision made there? That's a really tough thing. And if the wheels continue to fall off and it gets worse, that Hevesy and Grantham aren't enough to save Dan Mullen, then, all bets are absolutely off. But I feel pretty good about my forecast with him, and I will say, if I would have been on the pod last week, I think I would have answered this differently. So it feels like he could be another one of those guys that Oklahoma gets in on late and kind of ends up just falling into OU's lap through OU's hard work mixed with some good fortune.
All right. Looks like Eddie has dropped off. He's headed to the Zooms as well. I'm going to head there myself. But Josh, I appreciate it. Eddie, Bob, not here, but we appreciate it. And it's been a fun time listening to Josh talk about 7-year-old fat kids.
I'm just going to say, I stayed and listened to Bob talk basketball. I talk recruiting, and he just bounces. Whatever, Bob. Whatever.
He's never going to hear this.
I'm upset.
He doesn't seem like someone that goes back and listens to the pod.
I think I'm the only one that does, of the four of us.
Yeah, because we're all here.
I like to hear myself. It's pretty obvious.
From today's pod, I don't think anybody's complained that we didn't let you talk enough today. That's
everybody's
a for sure guarantee right there.
I want the reviews that are like, okay, it's enough, Josh. Now, like we need some iTunes reviews. Like, shut him up for a little while.
All right, that's going to do it. We appreciate everybody listening. Don't forget Dead Soxy, your great sponsor. Go check them out. Got the new Oklahoma edition out there. Go sign up. Promo code Boomer. Get 20% off. So thanks to Dead Soxy. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks to Bob. Until next week, we'll see you again right here on the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.